I'll start off by saying, because we're here to talk about no more passwords, right? And I think the first thing I would ask you is if you're in security or if you're like a fraud fighter, tell me the last time somebody came running down the hallway to ask you, are you in security or are you on the fraud team? Because if you are, I want to give you a hug and thank you for strong passwords. When's the last time that happened to you? Absolutely never, right? So again, that sort of gets back to that design for the human. And maybe the clicker won't work. So that works. So just a couple of quick things about me. I spent 16 years in the financial services industry, so don't blame me for anything you don't like about online banking. Worked for 2.5 years for President George W. Bush, and now have the company Fortalice Solutions. But really what sort of changed my mindset, because when I came out of banking, my focus was at that time when bad things happened, I would think to myself, well, if I could just talk to the users and train them and teach them just a little bit about what I know, they'll be safer, my job will be easier, and we'll all be really happy. And you've already heard my colleagues say to you how many times it actually takes to get that security awareness training into them. Right? And so oftentimes in the security industry, we talk about why do people click on links? Because it's their job. They actually get paid to go to work and respond to emails. And part of their job is clicking on links and opening up attachments. So as we think about kind of that design for the human, be asking yourself, where have you been front and center on design? I got a chance to actually go to Raleigh. There's this private collection of sports cars in, I don't know what you want to call it, like an old warehouse that's been converted for this private collection. And there was this fundraiser for disabled veterans and veterans with PTSD. And so I was at this car museum, so to speak, this collection, and I got to actually sit in these amazing cars. And I realized the problem that we have with security, with identity, with how we think about authentication, how we think about access controls, is very much like these elegant, phenomenal cars that I sat in. So I sat in a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, right? And so all of them have this amazing, you sit in, it's like a cockpit. It feels amazing. I asked if I could rev the engine. They said no. I asked if I would be allowed to drive them. They said no. So I just got the experience of sitting in the cars. And it dawned on me, think about if you sat in one of these amazing cars, and then all of a sudden there was this really ugly thing in the console, and it said when you want to brake, just pull on this ugly, nasty lever. And it didn't look anything like the rest of the Lamborghini. Isn't that the experience that you're delivering to customers today? So if you think about whether it's a strong password, even two-factor authentication, they're having this incredible, elegant, really cool experience on their app or on their tablet, and then you're like, I need you to do the clunky thing over here and tell me who you are now. When we're at a time where we don't have to do that, with all of the data that we have and the power, the computer processing power and the algorithm power, why can't we do something where it's not just user ID and password, where it's behavioral-based analytics? And depending on what the customer is doing, you elevate how much friction you ask them for based on what they're getting ready to transact. So if they're just logging in and checking balances, maybe it's the Trusona method, right? So maybe it's a way of authenticating that's not the user ID and password, and they're just looking at transactions. How about the minute they want to start wiring funds to a place they've never wired them before? That's where maybe some fun, entertaining type question and answers start to go on. Things that the users will remember, things that criminals probably wouldn't know. So be thinking about how do you design for the human. And really for me, the time that tipping point for me was when I went to the White House and my briefing changed every morning, and I realized I am going to colossally fail at my job and get fired in a very embarrassing way if I focus on insisting on educating the user. So I had to take a totally different approach and always say, okay, yeah, how do we design for the user? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the talent crisis. So you can look at it as a barrier or you can look at it as a milestone. One of the barriers that you have is your job descriptions are absolutely soul-crushing. Have you read them lately? Have you read your job descriptions? I mean, give me a break. First of all, there's the alphabet soup of all the certifications you want. Why do you require a college degree? Why do you require work experience? And then wring your hands and tell me that you can't fill your jobs. And why does every job require job experience, right? Why does an entry-level job require 3 years of work experience? That's not an entry-level job. Don't let HR and legal write your job descriptions. So you saw earlier where Ori was talking about fighting evil. Okay, so you can tell people the minimum qualifications of the job, but give them something to get fired up about. That's why they're not applying for your jobs. You got to tie it back to a mission. What is the mission? Tuning firewalls. That sounds really exciting. How about tuning firewalls to do what? Right? So be thinking about those job descriptions. Be thinking about transferable skills. I'm telling you, the labor force is out there if you are willing to look. Let's go back to my car experience, because it was really amazing sitting in these cars, I will tell you. It was really amazing. And some of them are like the only one of their kind that's around that's actually operational. And when I'm sitting in these cars and I'm looking at the design, I'm thinking about the master craftsmen who thought about everything, where things would be located, what it would feel like, how things were going to work. We don't do that with security, right? You're having that great experience, and then you have that moment where it's like, oh, that's right. I got to do security now. And it gets in the way. So why aren't we recruiting people that are known for doing amazing and elegant design? Why don't we have some of the best furniture designers and experienced designers and chefs who think about food pairings and tastings? Why aren't they in cybersecurity helping us think about an experience from beginning to end? I'm telling you, we will design security differently. So you may see today's talent crisis as a barrier. I see it as a milestone. I see it as we need to change our way of thinking, not only how we recruit and retain, but what actually constitutes cybersecurity. It should be an all-inclusive, immersive user experience, not something you do right before you want to do something really cool and fun. Oops. Okay, I also need a quick commercial because of the burnout and fatigue. So not only do we need to add more people to the profession, I cannot afford for any of you to opt out of the profession. I mean, unless you don't care anymore. So if you don't care anymore, you should get out. But if you still care, I can't afford for you to fall over and die, which is what you're about to do, okay? And the reason why I know this is as part of the things that we offer to our clients, we also do both formal and informal CISO and CIO coaching, one-on-one, where I'm talking to them, I'm checking in with them, and we're going over like why they're not getting budget, why things aren't getting done, why does the CIO organization hate me, why, you know, all that stuff that goes on, okay? And I have to tell you, some of the people who on the outside, I will tell you, they have it all together. The board's behind them, they've got a great team, they know what they're doing, they're like, you know, really hitting the peak of their career, and they're breaking inside. And why is that? Because this job is noble, but it's hard. We see a lot of dark things, and it's constant, right? 24/7/365, but you're not. You're not machines. And so I have to do a commercial here around, you know, this is my PSA. You have to find ways to recharge and replenish and have time for self-care. So I'm seeing a lot of people not do that, and instead they're either not sleeping or they're finding other methods that are not so healthy to actually kind of take the edge off. So if you haven't made time for self-care, that's my commercial on self-care. Be finding those ways to relax and recharge. I know for myself, I get up extra early before the rest of my household. I've got a husband, 3 kids. You could maybe put the husband in the kids category. And then I've got 2 rescue Great Pyrenees. Okay, so I get up before everybody else so I can get my head screwed on straight before everybody comes down. That may not be right for you. You might not be a morning person. Maybe you're a nighttime person. But find that way, find that time to create that self-care. For me personally, it's running very early in the morning, okay? It may be something different for you, but you need to find it because we cannot afford to lose anybody. We need to be adding more people. And you're not going to be able to generate those amazing ideas, right? If you don't do self-care, you're just going to come in and be fighting yesterday's fires. Okay, so why do we need to get rid of the whole idea of like user ID and password? And by the way, I am not a fan, so I'll have people say to me, oh, I know, I love just using my thumbprint for a password. Okay, that freaks me out because all we're doing is trading one thing that's being collected that's not protected for another, right? You can get a new password, you can't get a new thumbprint, right? I mean, maybe you could file them off. The next time you try to get a job and they want your thumbprint, you're going to have to explain yourself, right? So how do we think differently around authentication, authorization, and sort of kind of your typical behaviors? And how do we think about this as a profile? So I was over in Europe with the European Council of Banks. They asked me to do like a black swan scenario of could a cyber event actually present systemic risk and actually create a global financial crisis? And you know me, I have to deliver. So I said yes, and I gave them their black swan event. That's a different talk. But while I was there, what I learned was in sort of the deep fake category. How many of you think that there's no way there's a publicly available recording of your voice somewhere? Anybody think that about yourself? Have you ever given a talk somewhere, talked at student council or a PTA meeting, right? CEOs, definitely, right? There's probably videos of your CEO, probably audios of your CEO. So while I was over there, I learned about a case. And in this case, there is an international CEO. Then there are country CEOs. So they decided, because business email compromise is a real and present danger to businesses, they decided, in addition to, hey, send the money kind of stuff that companies typically do, that they would actually get on the phone and talk to one another, okay? So in this particular scenario, the global CEO's voice had been created in sort of a deep fake mode to actually have a slightly interactive conversation with the in-country CEO, who then promptly wired 250,000 sterling that they have not gotten back, as far as I know. So that whole idea of, well, you know, we'll do kind of the authentication, then we'll do something out of band, and that's going to do it. No, that didn't do it, right? So we have to be thinking about getting creatives in, thinking differently about design, and not just kind of like bolting on, we'll do this other thing, and then this other thing will be the thing that like we'll know, because I know your voice and you know my voice, and you would certainly not be able to be tricked over the phone into wiring money. And lo and behold, it happens. So again, how do we think differently about this design? Now, I want to give you some of my predictions. So at November, December of every year, I do predictions for 2 years out. So I did November, December of last year. I did by the end of 2021. This is just like my greatest hits of lowlights of what I think could happen. And if you want to know if my predictions come true, they always come true. I'm always right. Just ask my husband. He'll fill you in. And so on the first prediction is that 5G will accelerate cybercrime. So knowing that, I feel a very high alert sense of energy around kind of what are we going to do about authentication and user access controls, and it can no longer be what we've been doing in the past. Like, we need to rip that out and just really not just get innovative, we've got to really evolve and be pretty radical about the designs that we use. The second thing, which is the subject of a new book I've got coming out called Manipulated, is that misinformation campaigns will hit global elections again, so not just the US. I'm also saying, since I started off as an AI developer in my career, I'm also saying that AI poisoning will be a thing. So the algorithm, as many of you know, so most vendors right now that are selling you AI, it's really machine learning still, it's really not AI. But the salespeople don't always know the difference, no offense to any salespeople in the room. And so what I'm saying here is you have to train an algorithm on a set of data. And so what I'm saying here is that algorithm will actually be poisoned. So either the data as part of the machine learning feeding the algorithm, or the algorithm itself will be tinkered with and poisoned, and then you will not understand the results you're getting because it's a black box to you. So on like a lower end of the scale, still very concerning for regulators, it could be people who deserve to get a loan will be denied a loan. So that's like one scenario with an AI poisoning. The other could be something really, really horrible, which is like decisions being made about, we have a crisis, we should do these different types of activities for this crisis. The wrong decisions could absolutely be made. The next one is that ransomware will go all in on the cloud, because all the cloud is like your mess for less somewhere else. And so kind of the whole thing around like configuration, again, authentication, user access controls is really moving ransomware to the cloud in a very, very big way. I'll just give you a tip. One of the things that we're seeing is when the ransomware syndicates come into an organization, the first thing they're doing is looking for your backups. Many organizations have made the decision, we're gonna have hot failover. What hot failover means is like lateral movement. It happens at amazing speed for cyber criminals. And so if you haven't thought about physical and logical segmentation of your backups, ransomware is going to kill you. So you need to be thinking about, what is my logical and physical segmentation of my backups, but not just at the data level. It needs to be all the way down to the user access control level. And then lastly, deepfakes will become interactive and intuitive. So the idea beyond kind of that little rudimentary voice exercise that happened, because obviously, it's a very short conversation about wiring, so maybe you can get away with it. My belief system is that what we've seen with AI chatbots, which are communicating with each other on social media to conduct these manipulation campaigns, amplification campaigns, and misinformation campaigns, that technology is a test, and that technology will be matched up with deepfake videos and audios of notable people, and you will think you are interacting with the real person. And it's sort of like taking, if you've ever been to like Walt Disney World, and I have 3 kids, so we go a lot, and you go into Finding Nemo, the little attraction, and Crush, the turtle, is like swimming around, and he's like, hey, you little toddler there with your blue hat on. I don't think you're a toddler, sir. I'm not saying you're immature. But and then starts interacting with the audience, except for there's actually a human being doing that. This will actually be AI that'll actually be powering that. So deepfakes will become interactive and intuitive. Okay, and then just a quick plug for my book, because why not? So it's coming out in April, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've only allowed my security colleagues to have a sneak preview of the book, so it hasn't gone to anybody in the media or anything like that. And so my point in doing that is there's a couple of bombshell findings in there that have not been reported before. All I'll tell you is that a lot of times people think manipulation campaigns are only about elections. They're not. They're actually about making sure that you don't know what and who to trust to create a vacuum so that you trust the wrong thing. Secondly, I actually, on the journey of writing this book over the last couple of years, thought it was truly about picking losers and winners and also like destroying democracy. But I actually found a more sinister reason, and sometimes it's the primary and the sole reason, but you got to read the book to find out. So with that, there's my contact information. So if you heard, and we're going to have the panel come up here, and we're going to take questions from everybody. One thing I want to say, this is a smart group of people in here, my colleagues that are coming up. Healthy, respectful disagreement is always, always, always welcome. So feel free to challenge any of the concepts that we went over today, me included. And then this is my contact information. If you ever need anything, like we all have to stick together. This is all about greater good stuff. So turn it over to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to have our last speaker, and we may run out of time.
We have one more. I'm sorry.
Yes, one
sorry
more.
About that.
But does anybody have any questions for Theresa? There's one over here.
I just want to share my humble opinion. First of all, AI personally could be a threat, such as IoT could be Internet of Things as well as Internet of Things. Secondly, I do not believe not enough talents in cybersecurity. Only three things. You need to choose intelligent and also a person with energy as well as he or she is curious. Because working life is very easy as long as he or she is not a student. Everyone.
Okay.
I would like to work for her.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Anybody else? I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
I forgot there was a speaker after me.
That's okay. Any other questions?
Any other? And certainly I'll take questions as we go into the panel.
Okay, great.
Okay, cool.
Well,
Thanks.
Thank you. Wonderful.